Yeah.
All right, I want to welcome y'all to our study again, and we basically are in the end of chapter 11, start of chapter 12. I kind of wanted to stop there because I wanted to get into an important thought about Abram's father here before we get talking about Abram. Now, we talked about the descendants of Shem, and y'all remember I said the main issue when we start not talking about Japheth or Ham's descendants anymore was the descendants of Shem are going to be the children of Israel. Okay? So we now start getting this, and I wouldn't say just the descendants of Israel because we have to look down the road. Abram becomes Abraham and he has Ishmael, right? So it's not just the children of Israel, it's the children of really the whole Middle East. Think about that. So, the whole Middle Eastern region are focused on the descendants of Shem now. But as we got to talking, we got to Terah, and I want to pick up in 27. Who wants to read 27 through 32 there?
This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth. Abraham and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah.
Milcah.
She was the daughter of Haran, so that's his niece.
Mm-hmm.
Nahor's niece.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She was the daughter of Haran, and the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarah was barren, and she had no children. Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, the wife of his son Abram. And together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran.
Okay. I always bring this point out because everybody always has this thought process. Well, Abram was the one that left, right? He's the one that left the Chaldeans in the city of Ur. But who was it that actually left?
It was a bunch of them.
Terah, yeah, the father of Abram, right?
Yeah.
Now, as you read here, what does it say? They were going to go into where?
Canaan.
To Canaan.
But they came to Haran, so they stopped.
And he stopped. He stopped short. I always tell people this when we're looking at this, let's look at people in general, okay? A lot of people listen and hear God sometimes, right? But then they do what? They stop short. Instead of following through completely till the end, they do what? They settle somewhere else or for something else. Instead of getting the blessings of God, I'm not saying that Terah was not blessed, but he was going to go into Canaan, right? But he came to Haran and he stops. Now, here's the process. If you look at Ur is down here towards what we'd call Iraq and Kuwait, okay? The southern part of what's of Mesopotamia there. And they went up towards Turkey. Haran is up towards Turkey, okay? And then Abram and them would come down into Israel, into Canaan, eventually. But let me ask you this. Would we possibly be talking more about... by the way, does anybody know what the term or word Terah means? Another...
Earth.
No one's ever told us.
Earth.
Well, terra firma.
Yeah.
But it wasn't spelled T-E-R-A-H.
No. But Terah, another name for that is Earth. Sci-Fi Channel, you'll pick that up a lot. They use that instead of Earth. They call it Terah, and everything.
Learned it in Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, Terah. I don't think so.
Terra.
But anyway, yeah, Terah. as Miss.
You know, hers was T-A-R-A. It gone with.
Okay.
Anyway, Vivian Lee, but anyway,
But here's my question. The Lord didn't actually speak directly to
that we're aware of.
that we're aware of.
Mhm.
It doesn't say that, and I would think that would be such an important thing.
Mhm.
If he had actually said that, so I think it was part of the Lord's plan and will
Mm-hmm.
that they stop short so that Abram could go forward. I mean, it's like, somebody was saying, I listened to the radio, family, thing, and anyway, it was saying that, let me think. Anyway, they, well, Abram was talked directly to God.
Mhm.
God talked directly to him, and it's given an account of there.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
But I mean, like I said, if we kind of think sometimes, if he'd have gone on, he could have had that blessing too.
well, but his son Abram, he did get
Mhm.
the blessing through Abram on down through, and that was, I think, kind of the point that we're making, that God sees things. He doesn't look at history from the present.
He looks at
history
through.
from the future.
Yeah, he looks at through all of it at
He's
one
got-
time.
He's got a widescreen TV,
Mhm.
so he sees the whole picture.
You know, it's interesting to me when I look at this map and I look at the progression, and you got to think here, and we're going to talk about this. Abram didn't really stop in Canaan; actually, went into Egypt.
Well, he went down there, but he left out of there.
Yeah, and yeah, he had to come back because he
Well,
got.
Lot looked and thought of it.
Well, you know, everybody gets into trouble sometimes because of what their decisions are and what statements they make. You know, that's what I told y'all. I guess I could lose my job sometime for my opinion. But you know, we have to understand that this process with Abram started with his father, right? They left. Now, it was after the death of his brother, Haran, right? Have you ever possibly thought, I mean, when you lose a child, it's the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's beyond belief. And, you know, I had a lady at Cecil tell me, you know, I grew up with her youngest son, oldest son, and youngest son. And she said, it's the hardest thing in the world that she's ever had to deal with. You know, to raise a child to a certain age and then that child all of a sudden dies. You know, and everything.
My grandparents lost 4 kids.
Mhm.
I mean, and most people don't even have 4 kids, but in those days they did.
My grandparents, my mother's mom and dad lost 2, you know, and stuff. I mean, we have miscarriages and stuff like that, but when the child's born and you have that experience of life with them for a while or for years or decades even, you know, so it makes me wonder.
But you know, that's another thing. You're talking about a miscarriage or a stillbirth or
Mhm.
something like that. You develop a relation with that child before it's ever born.
You do.
Because when you're expecting that child, your whole life changes when
Mhm.
that happens. And you're focusing on that, and you're building your life around this new one that's coming. And then it's a horrible loss. I'm
Oh, yeah.
sure.
It is. Very much so. For both the dad and the mom.
But don't you think though that you'll know those
Mhm.
people?
Oh, yeah.
I think that, you know, that was, yes, that was a soul, you know,
I think we'll see them again.
I think so.
Um,
And see, I had 3 miscarriages, and I named every one of them.
mhm,
And I wouldn't use any part of their name for the kids I had,
mhm.
because that was their name.
You know, but we see this and we wonder, you know, I always had that, why did Tara stop? You know, was it because it looked pretty good?
That's what I was thinking.
You know, where he was? I mean, it's a pretty good area, pretty good region in Heron where he settled.
Maybe they were tired.
Maybe he's tired,
Uh-huh.
you know, maybe he's tired.
Well, he was 205 years old.
200, yeah, well, that kind of made me a little tired. When y'all, I mean, here I'm about to be 55 and I can't hardly get around, you know. Yesterday wore me out and I was in bed about 7:30 last night, you know.
You missed the game?
Yeah, because I'd been up since 4 that morning
What a game.
and at the college judging kids.
Okay.
I was having fun yesterday.
Are you at the college?
Yeah, judging the FBLA competition.
At the high school. I thought it was at the high school.
And it was in Magnolia?
No, it was at Hope at the university at Hempstead Hall there.
Yeah.
And stuff. But you know, you wonder. But then again, we have the story, like you said, of Abram, and God speaking to him to continue on and stuff. And that's the thing. I think that's what I wanted to kind of pause for just a moment to get y'all to think that God speaks to Abram to continue the journey, to don't stop, because it tells us, and pick up that little notion there, that they were going to Canaan, right? But like I said, Terah stopped short. God talks to Abram to continue the journey. There was a purpose behind this journey, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And they're still on it today.
Yeah.
And we're still on it today. Okay? A lot of people don't pick this up because they just read it and they go on about it. And I always try to pause for a moment to get people to see this. This journey didn't start from per se, right? With Abram, it started with his father, right? Leading the journey, then stopping, and then God picking up with Abram to do what? Continue and finish the journey. I think that's important for us in ministry. Why?
It's God's will. He has plans.
He has plans. How many times have we or churches or the ministries we've been a part of stopped?
Well, we started and then something comes up and we divert.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. We just don't know it all.
We don't know it all. That's
Did you
right.
ever know Dooley Fowler?
Who?
Dooley Fowler?
That
He's a minister.
that name doesn't ring a bell. I'm sorry.
Janet Fowler. He said that he was a investment banker
Mm-hmm.
for years, and God kept calling, kept calling, kept calling, kept calling. He said he was like almost 60 years old
Mm-hmm.
before he answered the call.
Mm-hmm.
And he always talked about his mama. He called her Big Mama,
Mm-hmm.
and the lessons that she taught him. But he said, I never thought I'd be a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
And God kept calling me. Kept kept having problems in his life, and he finally said, I must be doing the wrong thing. But he kept, you know what he did? He went ahead and went to school,
Mm-hmm.
became a Methodist minister, and had churches, was at Malvern for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
for 3 or 4 years. But he did the investment stuff on the side. He still, kept
Mhm.
in it.
A lot of us have that similar story. You know, I took a long time to get to be a senior pastor. I kept taking baby steps. And I heard the call when I was 12 years old.
But maybe you had to do all these other things to prepare you
Mm-hmm.
for when you got there.
Well, I use everything I've done in my life as a part of my ministry. You know, everything from business, and coach, teacher, everything. And fear is a lot about it. And not really fear, I would say, as, and I think I've shared this with you guys, I felt unworthy. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not, you know.
Who is?
Well, that's what God showed me.
Billy Graham.
Yeah. Well, even Billy Graham said that.
Franklin Graham, and, I mean, they're pretty.
Well, you look at Franklin, his life. I mean, he was. You talk about a PK.
Come around.
Yeah, the PK preacher's kid. I mean, he rounder. Yeah. Mm. You know, that's the thing we have to understand is, it's listening to God. Abram finally listened to God, did he not? Now, like I said, he had his hiccup moments. True. We're going to be talking about those. But he had his hiccup moments, but he did listen to God. Now, let's get into the call of Abram. Now, who wants to read 1 down through 3 there?
I read it.
Okay.
Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you I will curse. And by you all the families of the earth will bless themselves.
Okay, hold on right there. Now, who went up with it with Terah? It was Abram, Lot, Sarai, Ishak, right?
Mhm.
Now, what did it say about Sarai? She was barren, right?
Yeah.
Now, God is immediately saying, if you will do this, I'm going to do what?
Bless you.
Bless you. And your father's house to the land that I will show you and make you a great nation, and I will bless. Now, a great nation, what is he talking about there? You're going to have descendants, right? Now, this is a little bit of prophecy here because God, like you said, sees all things, and including the future. Here's an older guy. He's like, man, I ain't got no kids. How am I going to be this? You know, she's barren. Y'all remember at that time how people looked at barrenness. It was, they did something wrong, right? Now we got some medical stuff today. You know, I shared y'all the uncle that just passed away. He couldn't have children, or they didn't have any children. And of course, they always thought it was my aunt that could not bear children. Well, they found out because of Agent Orange, he couldn't bear children because of his service in Vietnam. It wasn't her, it was him.
Right.
You know, and everything. But they were still blessed, just as Abram and Sarai were blessed, right? Until God brought that promise. Now, they tried to jump ahead of the ball game, and we're paying for that today. That's what happens when you, even though hey, and I gave Sam a little grief this morning when she came into the office about the Razorback Texas game. I did see the score, by the way. And that's one of the two teams I'm glad we beat during basketball season. But,
Hey, I'll give you Texas if they'll beat Alabama.
that's right.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. Definitely in football, it's Alabama and Texas now. Those two, and Oklahoma. So, but anyway, we get to this thought that God is saying He's given him a promise that he can't even see yet. What is that? That's faith, isn't it?
It is.
And hope.
To prophecy.
Because I can tell you, as a person that has not had biological children, my hope and faith was that I'd always have children. And I do now have children and grandchildren. And I mean, even though they're not my biological, they're still mine and Penny's children. I mean, you know, and that's a continuation well, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes.
But you know,
Especially them grandkids act up.
in
Yeah.
Oh, that's the wrong thing to say, because as we see here and in countless other situations in the Bible, the Lord has done things that are totally miraculous.
Over and over. Made an axe handle float, or axe head float. Not the handle, the head. How does that work?
And so
How does it rain on fleece and not on fleece?
Abram didn't question God. He went ahead under the instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he kind of had an imagination.
He had a hiccup or two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He thought, well, I'll help out here.
Yeah. But this is the thing we have to understand. And I was asked this question in my by my students in the class, and I took them when they asked this question: does God still bless Israel today, and will He continue at the end of days? I showed y'all that in Revelation, did I not? When we talk about the 144,000, God always remembers His covenant with Abraham or Abram at this time, right? He remembers it. And He continues to bless His people even till the end. And that's the thing we have to understand.
He keeps the covenant.
He keeps the covenant. And the one thing I showed y'all that I've kind of told your classmates and stuff in this class is if you look right behind that, y'all remember we talked about the 144,000. I said this is the children of Israel. The other part of that, behind that, was all of us, the rest of us, the entire nations of the world, right? Totally different, separate. Right? But remember what I also shared with y'all in my sermons and teachings, especially talking about the temple and God always making a way. Even in the tabernacle and the temple, there was what was called the court of the Gentiles. God made a way for everybody, not just the people of Israel. Amen? God makes a way for all of His children. Now, He's kind of taken out and let's examine this for a moment. Why is it that God calls out Abram to be this special people? Y'all ever thought about that?
Yeah, why He chose him?
Out of everybody of Shem's descendants, why did He choose Abram?
So it would be a big deal.
Even though he had his hiccups, like Richard said, he was faithful, right? He was faithful.
In a few things, and that's what it says.
Mm-hmm.
You're faithful in a few things.
Well, let's look at this, and let's kind of jump ahead for a moment, and y'all have heard me preach on this. Abram or Abraham at this time that I'm going to be talking about, once he had Isaac, what did he do? He was willing to do what? Sacrifice that promise. And what did I tell y'all? What did that do? It allowed the door to be open for who to come in? Jesus, right? Because it took a man's faith of belief so that God could send Jesus to redeem the world. Sometimes we don't look at it that way. We just say, well, hey, he's a pretty good guy and he just trusted God. No, he trusted God enough to where God says, if humankind will trust me like this, I now can trust them with the greatest gift I've got. You see?
Abram was sacrificing his only child.
His only child. Now, he had Ishmael, but that Ishmael kind of moved on by this time.
He's a lot over.
Yeah. Unless you're from the Muslim tradition, and
Yeah, it works the other way.
Richard learned this in the Muslim tradition. It's not Isaac that he was sacrificed by Abraham; it was Ishmael.
Really?
Yeah, that's how they look at it. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, because see, Abraham is the father,
Of both.
and is truly the father,
Mhm.
but then they take and say the other way.
Yeah,
But now,
Well, the Bible says it was,
well, that's it.
that's our word. We're saying in the Islamic faith, this is how
well,
they
I mean, how can they believe it? What Bible are they reading? Not
the Quran,
Right. But
Certainly in our Bible.
the Quran.
here's the thing for us to think about here.
Mm-hmm.
It's either one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. And for us, it's like I told you in the class and everybody,
But,
we believe what we believe.
right, but we cannot say, well, one is as good as the other.
No, because Isaac was the promise.
That's, and see, the thing that saying one thing is as good as the other, which is a common thing these
Mhm.
days, is to say that there's no truth,
Mm-hmm.
but there is only one truth.
There is, and that's the thing we have to, and that's why I was talking about this lineage thing. The blessing comes from what? The promise of God. What did Sarah and Abraham try to do? They tried to get in front of God, because you got to remember, back in those times, we don't see that much today, if very little. But back in those days, a handmaiden or a servant or somebody, or it might be a family member of somebody, they would step in to be the surrogate mother to make sure that person had a child. To have that, remember that descendancy of heritage and continuation of the family name is very important in Middle Eastern culture, even still today.
Well, one thing, I think it's important for us to realize it and to think about, and going back to that course too, is that, all right, if the premise is that Ishmael was the promise came through Ishmael, then that has to be an untruth,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And if anything is based on the untruth, what is the basis of it?
That's right. But here we go back to this blessing aspect of it. And it's truth because it's Isaac, okay? Who came out of Isaac's lineage? Jesus.
Right, Jesus did, of course.
That is the truth.
That is the truth.
Because that's the truth that sets us all free from sin and death.
Right.
That's the true blessing that God is talking about here. That promise
Right.
of continued blessing forever and ever. You know, we had...
But look at those other people who
Mhm.
believe
Oh, yeah.
otherwise.
Oh, I know, and that's...
And it's such a blinder,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Well, and that's the thing we have to get to people is there's only one, you know, I tell people I'm not God and I can't judge, and that's the truth. But I'm also not God and I can't change the rules either.
No.
And when it tells me, you know, in the scripture how to get to God, how do we get to God? What did Jesus say? You got to go through him. What did he say? I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through who? Me. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. Well, these people are good. Well, I understand that. There's been good people on this earth that are going straight to hell. I'm sorry. Now, according to the Word. Now, I'm not to judge. Y'all understand that. But if the Word is true, which I know it is, then they... You know, I'll be honest with you. I've been blessed. I've known where everybody that I've ever done a funeral for, I know where they are because of their profession of faith. Now, they might have been some knotheads and, you know, rounders, but they did know Jesus as their Lord and Savior. And I leave that up to God. I've never not had somebody that I've done a funeral for said, well, we don't know if they're saved or not. That'd be a hard funeral to do. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have been in a funeral where did not know the salvation of that person. Even the wife, and he was a friend of ours. Close friend. Worked with my father. Even the wife couldn't say that she knew he'd been saved and baptized.
But you don't have to be baptized.
No, you don't have to, but I mean, had asked to that profession of faith, which is salvation.
What if people go through all that, being baptized and all that, and then they just live a ungodly life?
Yeah.
Well, and I leave that up to God, because like I said, I can't judge.
Let's hope that they ask for forgiveness for all
Yeah.
that crap they did.
And on top of that, if they profess a belief in Christ,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're saved. I mean, you know,
Like I said, I leave that up to God.
yeah. But it's kind of like this. We all know knotheads who got a high school diploma too.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
That's true.
I had to pass them to get them out of there.
Well, there's always somebody at the head of the class and somebody at the bottom.
They got there.
But, that's what I'm saying. When we look at this blessing that Abram is receiving, this is more of a blessing for us today than it was for him at that moment. Because we are the recipients of that blessing.
It says all nations will bless themselves.
Yeah. We are the recipients of that blessing, which is Jesus Christ. Now, let's go on 4 and cover down to 9 there. Who wants to read that? Or y'all want me to read it? So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Boy, 75. That's, Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot, and all the possessions that they had gathered, and the persons whom they had acquired in Haran. Now, acquired means what? Yeah, these were servants and slaves. Mm-hmm. And they set forth to go to the land of Canaan. And when they had come to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. And at that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will..." Now, y'all remember, here's an important thing here. Did they have kids yet? He's 75.
Got a late start.
Yeah. Kind of like my great-grandfather. He was 40 when he started and 50 when he had my grandfather, which was the last, To your offsprings I will give you this land. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved on to the hill country on the east of Bethel, pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. By the way, AI is not just new. Artificial intelligence, it's been around for a long time. Come on, that was a pretty good joke. AI.
That's not real, is it? You're not talking real.
No,
Okay, you're
He's
being
being
funny.
facetious.
I'm joking. But Ai is an actual town, an area. And there he built an altar to the Lord and invoked the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed by stages towards Negeb. Okay,
That's the desert.
that's the desert. So he's kind of touring the land, right? Finds a place, and he decides to settle there. He's still going to travel around a little bit, but this is the place that he's built the altar. He's gave thanks to God and invoked the name of the Lord, which means what? He's put his mark on it. Right? Now, again, let's go back to that point I was making here, that to your offspring I will give this land.
You ain't got no offspring.
Ain't got no offspring.
They gave him hope.
Gave him hope. Right?
Something to look forward to.
This is what I tell people. Well, I've been going through this for so long, and this hadn't happened, and God, I don't know where God is. And, particularly with young people today, they are so, and we're getting there because we've been in it so long. I'm just gonna say this, put this, everybody in this room remembers food and prep and popping popcorn and everything before microwaves, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody?
Every Saturday night.
Yeah.
I had it with my grandma,
Yeah.
every Saturday.
But I mean, the only way you warmed up food was by the stove or the oven or whatever, or you ate it cold, right?
Right.
No microwave.
No microwaves, no nothing like. What's happened since we got the microwave?
We got fat.
We expect
Now we have an air fryer.
we expect it.
I don't even know how to use it.
But-
We don't
But I
have
mean,
to spend a long time preparing.
yeah, I mean, Penny's uncle Michael, he's Italian. His father was Italian, so comes from an Italian family. He said his grandmother would work all day just to prepare supper.
Mhm. They would simmer that.
I mean,
sauce.
yeah, they would work on the sauces, the pastas, and they'd work all day just to have one meal.
Now you're making me wanna go to Olive Garden.
Now,
I'll go.
Well, I can remember,
they'd have field trip.
I remember, it was kind of astonishing to me, the way they did it, that my granddad had a house at a place where his granddad had settled, and that was a long time ago.
Mhm.
Because there was a spring out there, and anyway, they called it Hopeville, and it was in Dallas, no, it was in Calhoun County,
Mhm.
actually. But anyway, they had a table in the kitchen that was about as long as 1.5 of these tables here, and they had chairs up and down that, and they had 2 stoves they used in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and they would start at 6 o'clock in the morning and make a breakfast, and right after breakfast, they were starting on lunch, and right after, and actually working on supper for
Mhm.
that night, during the time they were cooking, lunch,
Mm-hmm.
And they had people coming from all kind of places to come and eat at their house.
Mm-hmm.
Some people I didn't know when I was staying there during the summer, well, it was some kind of a kinfolk or a good family friend
Mm-hmm.
that came by there, and my uncles would come and they'd say, always say, I hate to eat and run, but I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Hey, and that's just how it used to be. But what? Let's
I
look.
mean, they did it from the ground up.
Oh,
so to
yeah.
speak. And,
Well,
Maybe
my
the rest of the house.
my point to that would be this: what did this do as far as fellowship? Think about that. People weren't rushing. People weren't. Well, I got to get this, and I'm gonna,
They didn't have a cell phone.
sit in front of a television. Man, when I was growing up, you didn't sit in front of the TV and eat your supper.
No, you ate at the table.
You ate at the table,
meat.
right?
You from the table with
Yeah, you
Mhm.
didn't eat, you still had to sit there.
Yeah, until everybody got done, then you did dishes.
Go.
and I remember my grandmother working on stuff, and she could not walk. She was in a little roll-around chair, and she was rolling all around the
Mhm.
kitchen, and she had bad arthritis in her hands, but she could still peel potatoes and things
Mhm.
like that, and shell peas, and
Wow.
it was, like I said, it was astonishing what they did.
But we grew up in a time that young people today don't even realize.
No, we lost fellowship.
And we lost fellowship. We lost communication.
With
We-
microwaves and fast
And we
food.
lost the ability to be patient.
Instant
Yeah,
gratification.
sure did.
Instant gratification,
Right.
I can have everything right here, right now. I told y'all, think about this. Ur's down here at the bottom part, bottom part of Iraq, Kuwait, type of area,
Yemen.
Yeah, I mean it's not Yemen. It's more towards the Gulf there, But as you come up to get to Herring, you're like I said, up in the upper part of the mountainous regions of Turkey, and then they had to come down. So there is no telling how many years it took to walk.
Long time.
Y'all got to think to walk to get to Canaan, and he just didn't stop there. He keeps on trucking a little
Well,
bit.
and they probably didn't travel, 365 days
Mm-mm.
a year, every year.
Nope.
they would stop and stay there a while, and then there was probably what they called a traveling season, which might have been, well, they had to birth all the cattle and everything.
That's right, sheep and goats, and because what did it say? Every possession, and it wasn't just them. They were having to take their servants and and everything like. So you got to think, people are having people, right?
One thing I think we need to take into consideration and think about, when we talk about, well, who were all these people and how, and that's why they said they got them.
Mhm.
Because I'm going to tell you, part of it was these people were desperate and homeless, and they took them in and fed them.
Mhm.
And then, it says that you'll earn your way with a sweaty brow, and they believed in that too.
Oh yeah.
And so they had to work
Mhm.
to support the rest of the community. They couldn't have just a bunch of camp followers living off of them and not doing anything.
Well, and this is something I'm gonna say.
And there wasn't any money in those days to speak of.
But if you wanted to eat, you had to work.
Mm-hmm. I want to say this about slavery, okay? And I'm not agreeing that slavery is something good, okay? I'm not. I'm never going to say that slavery. But to most people, especially when you're talking about people that around Abram and his family and stuff, and you see this in stories and stuff. A lot of the slaves became family members, like family members. Actually, some of them, George Washington's closest confidant was his servant, right? That rode along with him everywhere he went.
Well, just to move it on up to kind of more like modern day times, and we don't have to go very far back to see the people that moved into this part, like 1836 in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen pictures of the Arkansas Traveler,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes up to a hovel. Well, there weren't any slaves at that hovel,
Mm.
except the people that lived there, and they were slaves to the environment.
Oh yeah.
And I have been to various places in Mississippi and Tennessee and all around where they did have slaves, and they were pretty successful people,
Mm-hmm.
like Andrew Jackson and stuff. The slave quarters were much nicer than where a lot of the pioneers were living, and they had it a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that, oh, well, this whole business of so-called slavery, which, I mean, I'm not making light of it,
No, it's
but because there's
a
not-
terrible part of history. But at the same time, a lot of people have the thought, well, this is how they were treated, and this is how they were looked at, and this is.
that they were beat every day before anything.
There you go. Thank
You
you.
know, that wasn't the
But
case.
that's not true history.
Now, there were instances where they did.
Well, and there are a lot of instances where the owners of the slaves educated their servants,
Well, they
or
did.
their slaves and stuff. Again, that's what I try to teach you guys. It's about truth, right? And true history, not just, well, this is the reason and this is why and this is all that happened. No, that's not exactly all that happened. And we got to take in consideration. So what I'm saying is these people that came with Abram and Lot and their families became like their family.
It was.
These weren't just workers or servants or slaves. These were actually people that became like family.
And the top people depended on those people
Mhm.
to do their job
Mhm.
so that the whole business could succeed and fare well.
Y'all like watching Yellowstone. I think everybody in here has watched Yellowstone and likes it. Even though they could be rambunctious and rough, how did they treat the hired hands?
Well,
Family.
They were all,
They're like family, right?
They put somebody's blood on them.
Well,
That might, yeah, Rip might tear into them occasionally, but
that was another thing about that big long table. The people that worked there
became
sat there and ate with everybody else.
one of my favorite movies, McClintock. What happens? The little Chinese guy, we're gonna put I shoot myself, He just, I'd be one of the family, call me family. But he was sitting at the dinner table, right? At the end of it there, but they made him. He was always a part of the family because he'd been their cook, right? and everything. And he, you know, they didn't separate like you said. Everybody was a part of that big dining room table. There was everybody sitting there eating, and that's the way it was. You know, we got to look at things a little bit more different than, because like I tell people, it's sad part about history. A lot of people want history just this little bit here and this little bit here. No, you need to have the whole thing to understand it. Good, bad, ugly. Boy, didn't I preach that Sunday?
Amen.
Good, bad, and ugly. Yeah. Okay, so we get to they're now journeying in stages, and I'm gonna finish up. If y'all give me, we're not quite yet at time, but I think I can finish up here. Now there was a famine in the land. Boy, that's global warming, global climate change. Okay, been around for a while, hasn't it? Been a famine in the land. So Abram went down to Egypt to reside there as an alien. What's that term, alien?
Foreign.
He was an outsider, right?
Foreign.
Foreign. For the famine was severe in the land. And when he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know well that you are a woman beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me. But they will let you live. Wait a minute. Is he trying to save his own skin?
I would be
He's
too.
not counting on God at that point.
Yeah, kind of thought God says, I'm going to bless you, and man, say you are my sister so that you may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared on your account. And when Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the officials of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. And for her sake he dealt well with Abram. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female slaves, female donkeys, and camels. And the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with a great plague. Now, God's blessed this dude. But like Richard said, he's kind of thrown faith out the window because he's afraid he's going to lose his own neck. Remember what I said about little hiccups that he has? Here's a major hiccup. But God sends a plague on the house of Israel because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife, take her and be gone. And Pharaoh gave his men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had.
To me, that's just a little bit crazy.
And why would you say that?
Because, why don't you just tell the truth, that's your wife.
Well,
Because
because
they're gonna
it
kill
was
her.
common practice in those days.
To marry your sister?
No,
No, we didn't.
no, to kill the husband. So,
So
Oh,
you
I
get
didn't think of that.
yeah.
Okay.
They would kill him.
That's my sister.
So, and he fared well, it said.
very, very well.
Yes.
For a little while.
He gained in what?
Well,
Wealth.
Well, did Pharaoh take her as his wife?
Mhm.
Yes.
Took her into his home.
So she was committing bigotry,
Adultery.
adult, no, yeah,
Yeah, what
Yeah.
man would give his wife for another man?
yeah.
well, now,
Enough.
now, wait a minute before you jump way ahead of the story. The Ten Commandments comes a ways later.
Oh,
But
it
yeah.
was okay back then.
No, it wasn't.
No, it still wasn't okay. But like I said, what's he trying to hear? And here's where I go with this story generally when I'm preaching it or I'm teaching it. What interferes with his faith.
His life.
Well, no,
What about his life?
He didn't
He
want to
wanted
die.
everything, he wanted wealth.
What do we
He
call
wanted more and more.
well, what do we call that thing? Starts with an F.
fear,
Fear. Fear gets in the way of what?
trust,
Trust and faith,
yes.
right?
But this, wouldn't we all do the same thing?
Doubt.
No, I
Well,
wouldn't.
That you
When
know,
we sing that song.
Yeah.
And obey.
Yeah.
trust and obey, for there's no other way.
Well, they wouldn't sing that song at that time.
No, they didn't have Jesus.
But and you're talking about this. He was okay as long as his life was okay and he was getting wealthy.
He was okay with his wife being with.
I guess so, because he wasn't griping too much.
So, no, now let's look.
But who got upset with it?
Let's look a little bit at, let's look
No.
at the broad picture because where we are in the present, we can see a lot of history.
Mm-hmm.
And we know a few things that the Lord also knows. And here is Abraham, and we're thinking, now this here Abraham is a skunk.
Mm-hmm.
He is a rotten little guy. All right. Then we look further over in the book, and somebody sees, who is it? Is it Lot in the bosom of Abraham? Or who is it in the bosom of Abraham? Who's looking up?
Abraham.
But, or is it the rich man that's looking up?
You're talking about the
There's several. I think there's an instance though where somebody looks up into heaven
mm-hmm.
and sees somebody.
The rich man looks and sees
That's right.
Lazarus. You talking?
Lazarus, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. Look, what I'm saying is look here at this guy.
And that was Sheol. That's the bosom of Abraham. Sheol.
Okay, but I mean it is.
Paradise.
It is a kind of step toward heaven.
Yeah.
And here is Abraham acting a skunk,
Mm-hmm.
but yet we see him in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's skunks in heaven, if you want to say it that way.
Well, this is this is the thing that I always tell people.
He's a little stinker.
Who is it that has to make things right?
Pharaoh.
God.
God, yeah.
But Pharaoh's the one.
Well, no, Pharaoh,
Trouble.
but what? Yeah, why did Pharaoh make things right? Because God made it right through he cursed his house,
Right.
and there was a reason behind that too.
How did he put the two and two together?
Well, he realized because something went really south after he brought her into the house.
Well, it said that there was sickness.
Yeah.
But how does Pharaoh find out that she's married to Lot? I mean,
Well, he kind of-
assume that that's what's happening.
Yeah, something's going on that God is now cursing him.
Okay.
How do I correct this, and what took place to cause all this? Because when things go wrong, you're looking for what happened that caused it, right? And so he's looking at, well, this didn't come on till I brought this woman into my house.
Who are you?
Right.
And then I imagine he questioned her, like, what is going on here that I'm now getting cursed and this stuff's happening? Well, we got a little secret.
He's not really my brother.
Unless you're in Arkansas.
I didn't have a
I ain't married to my brother.
How many of y'all know how many of y'all watch Jeff Dunham and Bubba J? This is kind of the Bubba J moment. You know, is Jeff Dunham,
Oh my gosh, Curry.
he's a ventriloquist comedian, and he's got
He's hilarious.
a dummy that is called
Family
Bubba.
I know
dummies.
who the dummy is.
Yeah.
You got
And he's kind of a redneck.
Bubba is.
Yeah, he met his wife at his family reunion.
Yeah. I said he's trying to trash.
Didn't you say
Yeah,
yesterday?
me and Bubba are related.
She said that during Domino.
Well.
She was trash.
I would not say that about anybody. But anyway,
Mom, why you say?
God didn't make no trash.
that's right.
I don't know, you listen to Bubba J, I can't
But, but we see this, and he's going to get in this. He's going to get in predicaments because of fear. Okay.
So
This
he
is-
was, the plan was for him and Sarah to go into Egypt and as husband and wife and just trust that God was gonna get them,
That would have been the best thing.
yeah.
That
But
God was
fear
gonna,
got in the way.
his,
God's gonna bless them.
yeah,
I
that,
mean,
did it,
all of them.
But
well, hey, did he not, has he not told us, has he not told them since Adam and Eve and I mean, everybody, I mean, we can go
Well,
down the
we did that in
line.
today's world. We did
Yeah,
that
I mean,
in
we're-
fear and- or other, not even just fear.
And,
Other reasons.
and now, let's look at it this way too. All right, here we are, and we know that his failure was, to fail to trust and have faith in God.
Mhm.
And we see what happened to him.
Mm-hmm,
Yet we also know that he was elevated
mm-hmm.
to heaven. So it's in our best interest to trust and
Mhm.
have faith in every case.
Yes.
Regardless. Because this was a dire case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was starving to death and all of his people were.
Well, and you know, this is the thing I go to today because what is it that people try to motivate people with? I mean,
Money.
well, yeah,
Fear.
Well,
fear.
Fear and money.
Well, here, the thing you gotta think about is, how this whole thing is manipulating the population of the United States. We just take that one thing about immigration. Okay, one outfit says, well, you better fear because you're not gonna have any vegetables on your table if you get rid of these people. The other people say, well, if you don't fear these people because they're gonna kill you, then that's why we gotta get rid of them.
I hate to tell most of these people because I grew up as a farmer. A lot of this stuff ain't handpicked anymore.
No,
No.
don't it have pickers that throw it up and
Yeah, all kinds of.
it's
machines.
automated already.
A lot of it's automated because
Or it's brought in from
it-
another country.
here's what I tell people: machines are a lot cheaper than people.
Oh, yeah. I
They're
mean,
easier to deal
And
with.
I ain't seen it. I
But-
go to the fields over there toward Mississippi.
But
I've never seen nobody out there picking nothing.
I want to bring
So where
to
are these people picking it up at?
well, that's what I'm saying. That
That's not true.
very few anymore are handpicked. I'll be serious with you. But to kind of get with what Richard's saying here to a particular point that we're talking about is, you know, in the world really, climate
everybody tries to
ch-
manipulate everything
climate
with
change.
fear.
Climate change.
Yeah, that's a fear.
What did we just say here? And I really paused to point this out. What was going on? Famine.
Climate change.
Cli-
so to speak.
yeah, climate change. I mean, they were having a drought, right? I mean, like I said, I've seen 3 years in the 80s where we had a drought. You know, we didn't get very much rain in that 3 year period, and it was very. I mean, I raked a 100-acre field to get 10 bales of hay.
Well,
I mean, that's pretty bad. Okay.
as my sister said, in 1980 it was hotter than darn it.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it was hot.
But what I'm saying is this: people use fear of climate change to do what?
Influence.
Influence causes us to lack faith, right? And it's just like nuclear war, this, that, and other. I tell people this: the Bible tells me how the world's going to end.
Yeah.
My faith tells me who's in control and who's going to win, or has already won, and we got to go get the victory. Now, if that's the case, now I'm not saying I don't have fear at times because I'm human just like anybody else. But a lot of my life now is a lot more based on, because I'll be honest with y'all, when I was a kid, and you got to think about this, the time we grew up in, invasion from Russia was what you see in the movie Red Dawn. That's the military's worst case scenario at that time. That could have happened.
Duck and cover,
Yeah.
Sorry to say, all you had to do is sit under your
I mean,
and you get okay.
you know, but I shouldn't have feared because God's in control. God could handle the Russians just like he can handle us or anybody else.
They did the same thing with COVID though, didn't they? I mean, they had everybody locked.
Had everybody scared to death,
Air attack,
Scared to get
you
out.
know.
that's control.
But here's the thing:
changed our country.
Yeah.
we got to going back to this point because we talked about it. Since time immemorial, we've not learned our lesson, have we? That's the problem. Everybody keeps wondering what the problem is. We've never, and going back to my new class that I'm teaching, we've not learned from our past. We keep repeating it. The children of Israel kept repeating it, cycle after cycle after cycle. We need to learn from our past so we can have a better future through God and Jesus Christ, because that's the only way we're going to have it.
That's right.
That's it. We can be the best people in the world, but if we don't have a relationship with God and putting God first, then it ain't going to work. Doesn't matter. I can tell you, it doesn't matter if you have a relationship with somebody. That relationship, if you don't have God in it, it ain't going to work.
Nope.
You don't have a relationship with God, everything you try to put your feet to ain't going to work. It might work for a little while.
Well, and let's look at Abraham again. You know, he did follow God.
He did.
In many cases.
He did.
But in a lot of cases, he went the opposite direction, and it all failed for him whenever he did that.
That's right.
But the thing that he was able to do is by trusting again, he redeemed himself, and that's why he's where he is now.
Exactly. We got to understand that through repentance and change, what happens? It doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes. It doesn't mean we're not going to make the same mistakes sometimes. I always tell people, now, bless God, I was pretty blessed that I passed my driver's test, both the written and driving part one time. But I knew people that that had taken it numerous times. You know.
How many times, Sherry?
I took the driving part 3 times. I think the guy just asked me.
You know what was interesting is when they came up with the change in the chauffeur's license to the CDL,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time I had to get a hazmat endorsement because we were hauling gasoline
Mm-hmm.
and diesel fuel, and I don't know how familiar you are with the CDL.
Mm-hmm. I'm very familiar. I work for a trucking company.
Well, anyway, I knew you did do that, but I didn't know if you that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was real interesting. There were a bunch of loggers in the class that I was in there doing,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't so much a class or just a test thing, because they were just, if you had a chauffeur license, you could go in for the test and you could get grandfathered in, which
Mhm.
I did do. So anyway, but it was funny. But these loggers was complaining about how hard the test was. I didn't think it was particularly hard. And I said, well, you ought to take that hazmat part. Well, really, what's that about? I said, atomic energy and things like that.
Mhm.
Oh my God, we'd never pass that test.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But no, you do have to know in that hazmat part about atomic energy, because if you're hauling radioactive material, you have to have it separated by a
Mhm.
certain amount of distance. I don't remember all that now, but it was
Mhm.
there was something about that, and I was thinking, how many CDL drivers, even with a hazmat endorsement, but they had to supposedly know
Mhm.
that, but I think there's always instructions on the bill of lading.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, but there's also a tank.
Look like Patty Face. She's driving through here 100 mile an hour. Anyway,
Yeah,
does anybody have any questions? We finished the chapter.
no, we finished the chapter.
Yay.
We were at the end of 11, finished 11 and 12. Y'all tell Patty Face we got 2 chapters done.
She wasn't here, we got 2 chapters done.
Yeah,
Anyway, chapter 13. Chapter 13, we're going to be talking about Abram and Lot separate.
Argue.
Well,
Now-
I'm thinking then though, did they name their children like Haran? I was confused when I was reading that, because one time they were talking about the father Haran, and one time they're talking about the land
Well,
Haran.
remember, my grandfather was his daddy. My great grandfather was John. His father was John.
You got any land named John?
Well,
named the town down.
Yeah, see, I'm talking about they named that town Haran.
Stuck on one
and
well, I mean, you got to remember at that time,
they tried to
land's
confuse
pretty
people,
open.
though.
land's pretty open. At
That's
that,
all confusing in the Bible when they
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they do that.
She must be on the phone. She